the Bedford Spirit, the place to hear about teaching and learning in our school. Thanks for joining us today. Now, today's podcast tackles the sensitive topic of mental health in young people. We all have it, mental health, and we know that in 2023, about 1 in 5 children and young people aged 8 to 25 had a probable mental health disorder. So at Bedford, we feel it's really important to be open, honest, no stigma. Good news is about mental health is the huge majority of young people who find themselves in regular low mood, or even those who seek support with their mental health, go on to make full recovery. So it's really good news and reasons to be positive about this topic. Adolescence is at times a period where we see our children go through low mood, sometimes sullen phases, and a lot of this is a really normal part of growing up. Not getting on with our parents is also a bit natural as a teenager, and it's all part of young people striving to make their voices heard and to get stronger and stronger opinions about things. So it's about becoming an independent adult this period of time for a lot of young people. And to help me to understand this topic in a bit more detail, I'm joined today by Meg Jones, who is our MHST Education Mental Health Practitioner at Bedford. Meg's got a wealth of knowledge on this topic and experience, loads of it, at dealing with young people and their mental health. So I'm really keen to hear her thoughts on this topic. So welcome, Meg.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So Megan, tell us a little bit about what you do at school.
So my role, I'm a low intensity cognitive behavioural therapist. So that means I support children and young people with low level mental health presentations. So that can include worry, anxiety, low mood, sleep difficulties and phobias as well. So what we can do, we can offer one-to-one or group support, and we look at young people's thoughts, feelings, behaviours, and how we can make small positive changes to our behaviour to change how we think and feel. And another part of my role as well, which is really important, is supporting schools' whole school approach to mental health and wellbeing. So you might see me around school delivering assemblies and workshops to students, staff, and also parents and carers as well about mental health and wellbeing. So that can include exam stress, psychoeducation around anxiety. So where does anxiety come from? Why do we experience it? And staff wellbeing too, because that's really important in order to support our young people as well in school. And also, we signpost as well and advise young people, school and families to other local mental health services. So if we feel that they could benefit most from a different route of support.
So you do a huge amount for us, and we're very appreciative of that. That's great. So as parents, the teenage years can be a really difficult time for us, and it's often difficult to know how to help your child when they're becoming more independent anyway, if they're quite low in mood or if they say they're struggling. So what can we do as parents to encourage our children to be mentally healthy?
Yeah, it can be really difficult for both sides, can't it? And first of all, I love sharing this fact about brain development with parents because I think it's really important to remember. So our young people's brains, they don't actually fully develop until they are 25 years old, which might be a bit shocking, but not to worry.
It is.
So this means that the prefrontal cortex part of the brain, so that is the rational thinking, decision part of our brain, decision making, that has a lot of growing and learning from experiences during our adolescent years to do. So this is why parents and carers might not always fully understand a young person's emotional response to something that we might perceive as minor, but to that young person, it feels really big to them because they're experiencing it for the first time and all those feelings and thoughts that come with that. And they're actually reacting with that more emotional survival part of the brain. Yes, that's really important. And the amygdala, it tries to keep us safe by looking out for those threats. And we all respond differently to those threats, which is really important to remember. But on the other side of that, in terms of what parents can do, when we first meet with a young person, we always find out about if they are meeting their basic needs, first of all. So are they getting those 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night? Are they eating a healthy, balanced diet? Are they drinking those 2 litres of water a day, staying hydrated? Are they getting that 30 to 60 minutes of exercise a day? And are they also practicing that self-care as well? So showering, brushing the teeth, things like that. So these are really easy, small changes in behaviour that we can start to look at and improve, which can help our sense of well-being. But also, I think another key thing to remember is adolescents, especially around sleep, okay, because I think they get a really bad rap for being lazy at this age and not having a lot of energy, having the lies in. But something important that I don't think is always shared is that adolescents, they tend to produce the sleep hormone, which is called melatonin, later on in the evening, which means naturally teenagers, they're not usually tired at the time that we're asking them to go to bed. So that's why they're staying up late and finding different things to distract themselves with, like the screens. And they do need those longer lines as well. So they do actually need more of that sleep. They're not being lazy. It's actually the hormone production, which they can't help. So sleep at their age is invaluable because that really supports memory retention and energy levels as well. But it's specifically more now in terms of low mood. When a young person is struggling and presenting as low, we do use an intervention called behavioural activation. So when we are low in mood, we tend to lack motivation to do the things that we enjoy, or if anything, we really do not get that feel-good factor out of life when we're in low mood. So if this continues in that vicious cycle, we need to do something about it. We need to make some changes. So this is where we tend to focus on what gives that young person a sense of achievement, enjoyment, and connection with other people. And we think of activities together that young person can try and plan into their routine, the weekly routine, to lift their mood. And you know what? We can't always find that motivation to get us out of that, that vicious cycle. It doesn't just come to us. We have to seek that motivation ourselves. And by doing something that's important to that young person and reflecting on how it makes them feel afterwards, it can be really rewarding. And the 5 ways to well-being as well, that's a really useful concept that we think about in supporting young people's mental health.
Now, I've heard of this. I've heard of the 5 ways to well-being. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Of course. So first of all, we start with connect with others. So what this means is good relationships. It actually helps our brain to produce chemicals that make us feel happy. So dopamine, serotonin, it lifts our mood. So experiencing that sense of belonging, and it improves our self-worth as well, which is really important in those teenage years. So an example could be for connecting with others. You could make a playlist of your favourite music to share with your family or friends. You could join a club to meet people with similar interests, or even cooking a meal together with your family and friends. So that's connect with others. And then we've got being active. So as we know, physical activity is really good for our mind and our body because it reduces stress and anxiety, as well as releasing those endorphins and boosting our confidence as well. So examples could be having a stretch, or going for a walk, learning a new dance routine. So it can be something fun as well. Another one is keep learning. So the next one in 5 ways to well-being, learning to keep learning. It stimulates our brain. It gives us a new perspective on the world around you, and it opens up those new opportunities as well for other people. So an example could be taking up a new hobby, or doing a puzzle or a word search, or even learning to count from 1 to 10 in a different language. Duolingo is really popular at the most people. And the next one is give to others. So acts of kindness. So whether that be, people doing something for someone in the community, it actually creates that positive feeling and a sense of reward as well with us when we do give to others. And then a way we can do that is helping with household chores, which might not go down so well, but
maybe not.
it does help give that sense, that those positive feelings. I've helped someone, I've done something simple, put the washing up away, or helping someone, or even smiling at someone, really simple. And then the final one is taking notice, which I think is one that we really don't focus enough on, and we could try to do more on. So stopping to take in the present moment, that can help us focus on what's happening on here and now. So we're not overthinking about the past, and we're not overthinking about the future. So a nice example could be looking out the window just to notice signs that the seasons are changing, or even creating a happiness jar and just writing down one thing that's made you happy each day and putting it in there.
These are all really good practical tips. So 5 ways to well-being: give your time, take notice, make connections with other people, stay active, and keep learning.
Yeah,
great. So I feel like I'm getting really good knowledge about some practical tips.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how to start a conversation with my teenager though about this sort of thing, because it can be difficult and they're not necessarily going to open up to you straight away, are they? So how should I start that conversation, that first conversation about well-being?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one that we hear quite a lot from our parents and carers. So what I would say was I would encourage parents to make that conversation about mental health a normal part of your everyday life, okay? So anywhere is a good place to start to try and have that conversation. So whether it be you're driving somewhere in the car, you're on a walk together, or you're doing an activity together, so cooking a meal again, for example. So it doesn't always feel that kind of harsh face-to-face eye contact confronting.
Yeah.
Make sure that doing something together. So parents, they can also role model by talking about their feelings as well and sharing times when they've also felt anxious and low. But it's also important to make sure that you are giving your child that full attention during conversation about mental health. So try to reduce distractions as much as possible, because we've all experienced the time and what it feels like if someone's not really listening to us, or we feel distracted when we're having a conversation that's important to us.
Yeah.
It doesn't make us feel great, does it? So showing you're listening by giving that, occasional eye contact, nodding, smiling, even saying, I'm here to listen, can be really important. I would even ask your child as well, something that I've learned to be really important through my work with young people. Would you like me to listen, or would you like me to give advice? I think that is really important, because sometimes a lot of our young people, they just want to get something off the chest, okay? They might not be ready to receive that advice and those solutions just yet, but it's completely understandable as parents who want to fix all of our young people's problems for them. We really want to make sure that they're okay and they're happy and thriving. But actually, your child might not be ready for those solutions right now, and they just want someone to listen.
Right.
And actually, by allowing them to have that space just to talk, they might even come up with their own solutions as well and do some problem solving for themselves. But another way as well, asking those open questions can be really helpful. So, how was your day? But also, not every young person wants to get that question as soon as they walk through the door. No, just like we probably wouldn't. If we've had a bit of a difficult day at work, we don't want to talk about it right away. Just some time to decompress, 15 minutes, half an hour, let them process the day, switch off for a little bit from school. And most of the time, they might come back to you with that conversation of what happened throughout their day. But also, if they're just not ready to talk just yet, just saying, I'm here when you want to have a conversation. So they have that choice. It doesn't feel like they're being forced into the conversation. But I've also got some good conversation starters as well. So it could be, I'm happy to listen if you need a chat. It could be, how are you feeling at the moment? Or you don't seem your usual self. Do you want to have a talk about it?
Sure. And sometimes saying as well, I've noticed that, because then you're dealing with facts, aren't you? So it's a good starter. And now we hear a lot about stress, don't we? And we know stress could be a positive thing. We know stress can sometimes also be linked to school, because workloads increase as we get to secondary school and to come close to assessments and exams. Stress can kick in.
Oh, yeah.
Can't it? So it's sometimes difficult to separate two things, stress and mental health. So what can we do to help if our teenager or our child's feeling these feelings for the first time, and we know that stress feeling ourselves, and we know that actually it will pass and it's okay, and it can be a bit of an impetus to getting things done as well.
Yeah.
So how do we help them to recognise that not every negative feeling, especially about stress, is necessarily bad?
I think it's helpful to think of stress as more of a contributing factor to mental health, because, stress, it can be really useful to actually enhance our performance and give us that motivation as well. If we've been putting something off for a while and it's time urgent, we need that stress sometimes to motivate us to get things done. So when we have that sense of urgency, it can be a positive thing if we use it in the right way. So it can allow us to focus, use our rational thinking part of the brain, and get things done. So I would say, we've got lots of different stresses for our young people. But it can start to become a problem if it interferes with our everyday life. And we start to experience that burnout, that exhaustion. Our body can get into that fight, flight, or freeze state. And then that's when we might start to notice we're feeling more anxious or low than usual.
I understand, yeah. So have you heard of stress buckets? I've heard of the stress. Tell me about that.
It's brilliant. So it's a brilliant tool that we love to use in our sessions. And what it really helps with young people, adults, everyone, it can be a really useful tool. So in order to understand why you're feeling stressed at the moment and what helps you to unwind and reduce stress, we use the stress bucket as an example. So I'm going to ask you to use your imaginations now. So let's think that we have the bucket, and everyone's bucket, it holds a different amount of water depending on your baseline level of stress. So your stressors, let's imagine that they are drops of water dripping into the stress bucket. So for our young people, this could be exams, it could be arguments with the family, falling out with friends. It keeps dripping and dripping and dripping into that bucket. So depending on how full our buckets already are, so we might have a different tolerance to stress. A few of these stresses, it could then cause our bucket to overflow, and that's when we'd start to see those physical or mental signs of stress, including that irritability, we're not as patient as we would be normally, snapping at people we care about, that lack of sleep or even too much sleep. Concentration can really be affected, feeling constantly drained as though we have no energy for anything at all. But the positive thing is we can actually stop our stress bucket from overflowing if we have the ability, if we can add on there a bit of a support mechanism. So we add some taps to our stress bucket now at the bottom. And with the taps, what we do is we release them. And by doing that, we think about the things that help us to relax and switch off. So what helps us to reduce that stress, which could be exercise, spending time with a pet, doing a hobby, something we enjoy, like playing guitar. In life, we're going to face those everyday stressors. So the more we get used to turning the taps on and releasing that stress, the more balanced and the less stressed we feel over time.
I see. So that's a really clever metaphor. I understand that now. Thank you. So what about the young person who says, I'm not stressed, it's more than that, I feel like I need extra help with this?
Yeah.
What should we then do as parents to get that help?
Yeah, really important. So I would say, first of all, I'd advise that young person to speak to a trusted adult, whether that be someone at home or someone in school, to see if they can offer a solution and help. Or also, we can also encourage them to problem solve for themselves. So this is a skill that anyone can learn. We use it in our sessions, but you can access resources online about problem solving. But in summary, it's 6 stages to problem solving. So the first stage, we need to pinpoint exactly what the problem is, what's causing that stress or that worry. And we can do that by writing it down in a few words or a sentence. Then the next step is think of all the possible solutions to that problem. Maybe come up with about 4 at most. That can be really helpful. And then the next step, so step 3, we weigh up the positives and the negatives of each solution. So what are the pros and cons? What would be good about this if I try this solution, or what would be a bit of a barrier, a bit challenging? And then step 5, we're going to decide which solution we think is the best, and we make a plan from there. And making a plan is really, really important, because often we can say, yeah, I'm going to do it on this day, and then that day never comes. So yeah, if we just actually commit to a day, a time, a place, we're more likely to do it. And then the last one, so step 6, so that is doing the plan and then reviewing it as well. Did it work? Did my solution solve my problem? If it did, that's great. But if it didn't, then you can actually go back to those solutions that you created in step 3, and you can pick a new one to try as well. But another way that young people can build resilience, I know that you've got an amazing wellbeing tracker at school, which I've been introduced to, and I think it's really impressive. So what I've seen on the young people, they can collect this from any pastoral guidance officer, but it tracks, it's really good, and it tracks behaviours on there. So you sleep, exercise, eating healthily, all those topics that I mentioned earlier that are key to wellbeing. So introducing young people to that as well, and seeing where they are at the baseline at the moment, and then what they can do to add things and improve things around those key basic needs. Just to create that balance in their lives as well. And if they can try and commit to that for about 6 weeks, then that is where we form a routine and a habit, and we might notice big change in that one person.
That's great. I know there's parts of the tracker that some young people will find easier than others. So it's really good to know about that problem-solving technique so that they can access parts of that tracker that are less appealing or harder to get on board with. That's great. So for family where the young person's been a bit down and they've tried the tracker and they seem to be getting into some good routines, what can they do to keep it up?
Yeah, so that's really important. And there's another toolkit that I'll mention here. So it's the Charlie Waller toolkit. So this is available. Yeah, it's really good. And this is available online to young people. If you just Google Charlie Waller toolkit, it'll come up. So this is a young person's website for mental health support. So it helps young people to think about new things that they haven't tried yet to support the wellbeing. So it has activities on there that they can do to support the wellbeing, and also recommends things that maybe they should avoid as well, because sometimes our young person, if we realise that they're spending a bit too much time on the screen, things like that, that's quite a big problem at the moment. Hearing it from someone else can be quite helpful rather than we're not always prepared to listen to our parents in that moment at times, and hearing it from someone else can be helpful. Also, it's advice for young people by young people, so it's really recommended, this toolkit. And also on there, there's a daily maintenance plan as well. So that's where young people can plan what they do for themselves every day to keep well. So looking at those triggers, those challenges, early warning signs that they're struggling. So the early warning signs, are they becoming a bit more withdrawn than they usually are? Are they struggling with their sleep at the moment? Looking at those early warning signs that they're struggling, and then they can come back to the plan and review it, and they can come back to that each day. But we can also access Kooth online as well, to speak to someone online. Young minds as well, they have an online messenger service and Shout. You can text that to an anonymous service to gain support as well, and their number is 85258. So young people, they're quite like that one. That's quite a popular choice with them, because they can just get off the chest and speak to someone, and someone will get back to them.
That's great. So the Charlie Waller Toolkit and Kooth, and we'll put links to both of those in the comments in this podcast. So I'm going to put you on the spot now, Meg. Your top tips, if you can summarise all of this wealth of knowledge that you shared with us today, what are your top tips to stay mentally healthy?
Certainly try my best. So I can't emphasise how important it is keeping a balanced routine, especially keeping that regular sleep pattern. So when I do my sleep hygiene sessions with young people, they're so surprised just by how these simple things can have such an impact. So something as simple as going to sleep and waking up at the same time every day, it gets your body into that routine. It sets that circadian rhythm, which is really helpful to get us into that habit. Also, I think dedicating that time to exercise and relaxation is really, really helpful. So exercise, like we were saying before, it can help reduce our stress and anxiety levels, and relaxation as well. You know, we live such busy lives, often really overwhelming at times. So taking back some control and deciding when we're going to have that time for ourselves is the biggest act of self-care that we can do. And then my second one would be staying connected to others. I feel that is really important. So whether this be in person, ideally in person is better, but some people, they do prefer having the friends online, and that is okay as long as it's done safely. So having somewhere or a group of people where you feel like you belong, it's essential for us as human beings. And also with screen time at the moment, social media is becoming more prominent than ever. So according to research at the moment, children ages 8 to 12 years old, they spend about 4 to 6 hours a day. So
wow.
4 to 6, not 46, that would be a lot. And then teens, that's 9 hours a day.
9 hours?
Yes.
Wow.
Which is more skill down, like thinking before.
That's right.
So too much screen time, it does impact that sleep, it impacts concentration. And depending on the content that young people interact with online as well, there's a lot of cyberbullying these days, or a lot of unhelpful comments and content on there. That can impact mental health too, so monitoring that. But finally, and I think important to me as well, it's best to try and notice at least one positive thing that we can a day. So we've got to encourage our brains to get out of that negative cycle, because it loves looking for patterns, our brain. And we always tend to look for the worst outcome or the negative cycle, okay? But trying to get out of that, trying to break that, if we can just think of one positive thing a day, build our resilience.
Great. So rest, exercise and relaxation time, connecting with others and hopefully in person. And then that last one, you mentioned gratitude. Yeah, grateful for the small things. Love it. That's been really, really interesting. What Meg mentioned earlier in that discussion was the wellbeing tracker. And I just wanted to highlight that for a moment. It's a great document that we have in school. Students can pick it up from any PGO, and it encourages young people to start getting into the routines of some of the things that Meg's talked about today. So we would really encourage anybody who feels they could do with a bit of positivity in their life to have a go at that tracker. Do you have any useful links, Meg, and so to share before we finish today?
Yes, we do. So we actually have something, an online resource that's called the Padlet. So if you can either Google Padlet, Wigan Campus Mist, but I think we can also put the link at the end of the podcast, can't we? We can link that somewhere as well. But what it's got on there, it's got lots of further information about online resources for young people, for parents, for schools as well. So all those websites I was mentioning then, Charlie Waller, choose Young Minds and Shout as well. It'll all be on there, all that contact information as well for people to access.
It's a great portal, isn't it? Yeah, thank you. Meg, thank you so much for your time today. I found that absolutely fascinating, and as a parent myself, really helpful as well. And if we can learn to help ourselves, I guess we build confidence, we build self-esteem, and hopefully we build resilience for the future, don't we?
Absolutely.
If you've enjoyed listening and found that useful, let us know. And in the meantime, thanks for your time today, and we hope you tune in next time. Bye for now.